Hey there, you, me, and DC fans, and welcome if you're new. I am the stepson of Krypton, coming to you today. Absolute Green Lantern issue number 10. For those of you who remember where the last issue left off, we have some questions that need answered. So let's go ahead and see if we get those answers in this issue. All right, guys. So you remember where we left off? We had Goldface there. He had just shot Joe a couple of times in the stomach, and she was kind of bleeding out on the floor of Cam's apartment. Well, this issue opens up similar to all of the others. We got the four sections, but again, this time, this voice is speaking to Todd Rice. He being another anomaly in the spectrum of light. However, it would seem the forces of chaotic action are upon him. And they do something interesting with the circle that we normally see, as it turns out to be a hatch opening. We see one of Hammond's guys, and he isn't interested in helping Todd. In fact, even telling him that he isn't useful anymore once they gleaned all of the information from him that they needed, except for one thing. This may be the chaotic action the voice was talking about, as we get a look at the storage container that Todd is being kept in and a massive hose that's going to be attached to the hatch of this tank. It would seem good old Hector gathered the black goo from Evergreen, the same that turned Hal into the what he ever he is becoming. And if you remember, that goo came from Abin Sur after Hal shot him with the gold-plated bullet. Well, they are going to completely submerge Rice, and hopefully, I meant Todd Rice, not making up some weird meal prep, and see what they get from this experiment. Next, we go back to Cam's apartment, where, as we said from the beginning, Joe's dying on the floor from multiple gunshot wounds to her abdomen, and Goldface is there. Well, he's kind of gold everything at this point. Is feeling kind of quite parched and needs some refreshment. It would seem Joe is being a rude host. As Joe lay there dying and Hal unconscious, there are a lot of questions that come up about why this is working the way it is. And as he continues the typical bad guy, you can't stop me speech, he lets her know he isn't there to kill her, and she need not die if she would just give him the intel he is looking for. Or should I say, Hector is looking for. And that is the location of the Green Lantern. And it kind of almost seems like she's about to tell him when she passes out, either due to pain, blood loss, or probably a combination of both. Maybe he shouldn't have shot her twice. Or it could be neither, as it looks like she was faking getting him close enough for a swift punch in the dick. And of course, as we saw in the last page, she had the blood on her hand. It now looks like his dick is bleeding, which, to be fair, as men, I think we would all be worried about that in this situation. And just as he gets relief that his junk is safe, Joe is gone. Although it won't be difficult to follow her to the kitchen where she crawled off to. And with the little strength she has left, she uses her powers to shut the door and fuse it closed. And can we talk for a second, like, who has a door to their kitchen? I know this is supposed to be a more like traditional design, having a door to the kitchen, but the apartment looks pretty modern to me. Anyways, on with the comic. And as Goldface is figuring out how to get into the kitchen, Joe desperately gets to the utility drawer. And let's face it, in most kitchens, we have a utility drawer or a packet drawer or some form of both. And she locates some pliers. She can't heal with the gold bullet still in her, so she looks to do some self surgery. Although maybe it's just how it's drawn, but those don't look like needle nose pliers to me, so this might hurt a little. And yes, I know it would still hurt like hell even if they were needle nose. Just saying. Let the operation begin. Just don't touch the sides. As Goldface tries kicking in her door to the door to the kitchen, mind you, is this the most pain she's ever experienced? I don't know. Let's flash back and take a look, shall we? As we see Joe as a kid, she is asked the same question, the most pain she has ever been in. So naturally, her last fight with Cam, when she found out that Joe was cheating on her, comes to mind. And we have successfully extracted one bullet, one to go. Goldface is still trying to get into the kitchen, and in his embarrassment, he is making fun of her, trying to cover it up, going on about her crying as she lay there with 2 shots to her abdomen, but finally manages to get the door open just as we see the second gold bullet hit the floor. And he sees Joe floating there in her glory, her green glory, that is. But you know what isn't gold? The pliers she just used, which immediately get forcibly inserted into Goldface's eye socket, stabbing into his brain. But telling him to dig the gold out of that is an interesting dialogue option there. Either way, he's dead. It doesn't matter. Even she looks to question it, though, as she kind of repeats it. Dig the gold out of that? I mean, look, when you do some cool shit, you only get one chance to establish a good one liner or a good catchphrase for yourself, and it looks like she missed the mark. But just then, Simon and Carrie bust in. Seeing the blood, Simon thinks the worst. Keep in mind, this is Cam's apartment. And of course, try and interrogate a comatose man, which, to be fair, they don't know that yet. But Joe quickly brings them up to speed, commenting on Simon's appearance resembling that of a luchador, which, for those of you who don't know, is a traditional Mexican wrestler, usually wear masks. But Simon still thinks something bad has happened to Cam. At first, Joe doesn't respond very friendly, kind of smashing Simon into a wall. But as Carrie says his name, she remembers him. He was at her wedding and their divorce, but they are beyond bringing up the past. He just wants to know where his friend is. And right on cue, she comes walking in. And just like her, I'd be pissed if I came home to find my apartment looking the way hers does. Moving to the kitchen, they see Joe's handiwork, and she explains that she did not let him in looking like that, even without the pliers in his head. He looked like Jon Stewart. And Cam wonders how he would know about the gold bullets and where to find her. Who's selling Joe out? They try to bring everybody up to speed on the green versus gold. Hell, it's even difficult for us as readers to understand. We got chaotic actions, we got correct actions being the green, and then the absolute understanding with the gold. But speaking of gold, Carrie is a level 2 psychic, remember? Maybe she can get something from Goldface's lifeless body. She's able to ascertain his name, obviously, good old Keith, for those who may not remember, and that he works for Hector Hammond, which doesn't sit too well with Cam, as she says, "We need to go now." Back at the lab, the boys aren't getting good news from the experiment with Rice. It doesn't seem to have bonded with him the same way it did with Hal. All they seem to have made is an obsidian shell, although Hector doesn't seem too displeased with the experiment. Because as we go on to the last page, we see this massive black creature with these huge black claws, and they have the perfect name for him, Obsidian. Now, for those of you who don't know who Todd Rice is, he, in the Prime universe, he becomes the character Obsidian. This is just kind of, I'm assuming, just Absolute Universe's take on his character. It will be interesting to kind of see where this goes. And that is it for this issue. All right, guys. So that is issue number 10 in the bag. Obviously, the trade will probably be coming out here before too long, just like it did with our first 3 in the Absolute series. Still a little slow to get into it. I feel like for having you've completely redone the entire Green Lantern Corps, Guardians of the Universe thing, more than just like some characters. I mean, this is a massive, you know, area of the DC universe is having the Green Lantern Corps, all the different Lantern Corps. So I feel like 10 issues in, I'm waiting for some more information on exactly what is going on. We know that Todd is coming, the planet, the Black Stars, all of that good stuff. So I'm waiting for it to pick up a little bit. I'm going to be a little more patient with it for right now because we are getting all these little nodes like Obsidian here. So it's enough to keep us interested. Let me know, how are you feeling about it? Let know down in the comments. Is this your favorite? If not, which one is your favorite in the Absolute series? And if you've been watching our Absolute series, I hope you're subscribed to the channel. If not, while you're busy giving this video a like, consider subscribing, having the bell notifications clicked, So you will get alerted as we bring out everything in not only the absolute universe, but everything we are doing in the KO event in the Prime universe that will be crossing over at some point with the absolute universe. All right. And because we've had so many comics releasing this week, I still have a couple more to record. So that is going to do it for me on this episode of You, Me, and DC. Until next time, guys, I'll see you then.